Speed is a 1994 action movie starring Keanu Reeves, Dennis Hopper, and Sandra Bullock. The movie follows an LAPD member named Jack Traven, played by Keanu Reeves, and he just loves saving lives. He just can't bear to see anyone hurt. One morning, he gets a phone call and he finds out that there is a bomb on a bus, and if the bus goes any slower than 50 miles an hour, the bus will explode. And from that moment on, Speed has become the best action film I've ever seen in my entire life. That is no exaggeration to say. Its only real competition is Terminator 2 Judgment Day. If I was asked what's my favorite live action movie of all time, I would say either Terminator 2 Judgment Day or Speed, both of which are excellent films. But today we're going to focus on Speed. For starters, the concept is terrific. A couple of years ago, I was seeing that my sister was watching the opening credits of the movie play, and I went over to my mum and I asked her what was she watching. Mum told me it was a movie called Speed, and she told me about this premise. She told me about the bomb on the bus. If it goes any slower than 50 miles an hour, it explodes, blah blah blah. And my initial reaction was, that sounds awesome. I want to watch it. So I sat down, I watched it with her, and I immediately fell in love with it. So I just watched this movie again to see how it's held up for the sake of this review. And not only is it as good as I remembered, but it's actually a really, really well-directed movie. The movie is actually very suspenseful, and it actually built a lot of tension surprisingly quickly. And I mean that the movie was actually giving me goosebumps. I actually was feeling tight within myself. Like, I started getting adrenaline rushes. Like, I was feeling suspense, and the movie was only 5 minutes in. Now that's impressive. And the movie keeps its suspense. Every other time I watched a movie in the past, I just thought it was really good because I thought it was really fun and the concept was really cool. But now that I'm older, I watched it again, and I actually feel it's a very suspenseful movie. It's one of possibly the only movie that's kept me on the edge of my seat the entire time. And it was magnificent. And the really cool thing is, I was getting tight within myself. I was at the edge of my seat. And I've seen this movie before, and I already knew what was going to happen to the characters, but I still felt suspense. And that's because it's very, very well directed, as well as a genius of a premise. And I'm really glad I did go back to watch this movie as an extreme film enthusiast, because I am now able to appreciate the amount of suspense and tension that was built within this movie by the director. Now, yeah, it is kind of true that the bus thing doesn't exactly start until at least 20 minutes into the movie or so, but it doesn't feel slow paced because it spends a lot of time, and that first 20 minutes of the movie is really building off by helping us get to know our characters by showing what other stuff is done in the LAPD job, including a perfectly well directed elevator sequence. That opening elevator sequence is amazing. It's action movie gold. It's perfect filmmaking. There's a lot of other iconic sequences in this film, like the gap in the freeway, the scene where the bus has to take a really sharp 90-degree rotation over the 50-mile speed, and the bus almost tips over as a result, the scene where Jack actually has to go under the bus to see if he can disarm the bomb, the scene where the bus circles the airport. All of these action films I remember because the movie is so memorable, and it's also a very funny movie as well. A lot of these action films are always really serious and really dark. And this movie, it has a lot of really memorable quotes. Another thing I do love though is that while there's constant action and the movie never slows down, quite literally, you're always at a bus that's going over 50 miles an hour. But I do love how the movie does somewhat slow down as far as pacing goes, by stopping to give us a couple of moments building our characters. So once we get to the bus, before the whole action stuff with the bus actually starts happening, the movie actually spends its time in a couple of scenes to actually help us get to know all of the passengers on the bus. And so we actually know these personalities. These are characters. We actually get to know the people on the bus, and not just random people. We actually get to know them. We know someone who's just being a tourist and who just likes exploring the world. We meet someone who has anxiety issues. we find out that there's a criminal on the bus. And we know all of these information about these passengers on the bus because of excellent writing, and it actually takes its time to flesh out its characters. And I loved the character Annie, perfectly played by Sandra Bullock. And overall, the cast in this movie is spot on. Sandra Bullock in this movie is fantastic. She is funny, she's entertaining, but she's just a really likable character, and I got really invested between her relationship with Jack. It was also a really cool move to actually have the villain and the main protagonist, Jack, know each other before the whole bus thing started. Like, when this bomb on the bus stuff all happens, Jack automatically knows it's this villain guy that's been giving them trouble before, and it now allows them for more personal conflict, considering they actually know each other. And I love to see where the bomber terrorist tells Jack about the bus. I've actually memorized that entire scene off by heart. Pop quiz, hotshot. There's a bomb on a bus. Once the bus goes over 50 miles an hour, the bomb is armed. If it drops below 50, it blows up. What do you do? What do you do? I'd want to know which bus it was. Ha, you really think I'm going to tell you that? Yes. Okay, very good. Now I want you to get this right. No one goes off the bus. If you try to take any passengers off the bus, I will detonate it. It's such a memorable scene. In fact, the whole movie's so memorable. And this movie also has one of my favorite action movie sequences of all time. The scene where Jack is chasing after the bus. It is such a riveting scene, as well as a very funny scene. It brings in some comedy, as well as being a very riveting scene. It really got my adrenaline pumping. His moving from vehicles to vehicles, trying to get through the traffic and trying to chase after this bus, and trying to contact the driver that there's the bomb on the bus. It's a really exciting scene, and it's an idea of what's to come in the rest of the film. And, well, since this movie was released in the 90s, the time where 90s action movies could just be good, realistic action movies without relying on a whole bunch of crappy CGI. Yes, with a lot of modern 2000 movies, a lot of movie directors, and you know who you are, and you just take the CGI to a disturbing level amount, like you go ridiculous with CGI. This movie is actually extremely practical. When the bus is going over the gap in the freeway, it looks like it's going over the gap. When the bus is actually looking like it's about to tip over, it actually looks like it's tilting onto wheels. There is never a single shot in the movie that I think looks fake. It's a gorgeous looking movie. The movie could come out today and I would still think that it's an excellent movie. It's not just the action and the effects and everything, but it's the tension and the suspense and the amazing characters, as well as the terrific concept of the movie, which is why this movie holds up extremely well. And I genuinely have no criticisms for this movie. This is one of those movies that I just love so much. I have no flaws with this movie. Speed, amazing film. If you haven't seen it, I really recommend you do. I strongly suggest this movie to you because it's a fantastic action movie. If I gave ratings in my reviews, I'd give it my highest rating. And that wraps up my review for Speed. Hasta la vista, baby.